Welcome to the Voice of Business. This is a program sponsored by the Beverly Chamber of Commerce, the Greater Beverly Chamber of Commerce. John always reminds me of that when I talk to him about it. But we do this program to bring topics of interest to the community and that serves by the Greater Beverly Chamber of Commerce. So today, I have in the studio with me John Solms, Director of the Greater Beverly Chamber of Commerce, and Susan MacFarlane, owner of the Susan MacFarlane Wellness Studio. And they'll be participating in today's show. I'd like to welcome you both. Thank you for coming on to the show today.
Thank you.
Before we begin, I'd like to have John talk a little bit about some of the Chamber's philosophy and on some of the value-added programs that we have in place and we're looking to have in place in the next several months.
Yep. First, we have the Business Showcase, which is coming up on May 12th at the North Shore Music Theater. It's one of our biggest events of the year. It's a huge networking event where we have close to 60 different vendors that will be at the event promoting their products and their services, and there's a networking opportunity for all that attend. We usually get between 350 to 500 people that come to the event. People bring lots of business cards. We have something that we offer, the Taste of the North Shore, which we have about 6 different food vendors which are giving out complimentary samples. We also have Cash Bar, and we also have a couple other different services that they'll be giving away as well with lots of prizes. So that's one of the big events that we have coming up.
When is this happening?
This is going to be May 12th from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock. So it's really kind of like a quick opportunity to meet a lot of people in a short amount of time.
And that's at the North Shore Music Theater.
Yeah, North Shore Music Theater, yes.
Thank you. I'm doing well today. So that's where we are. Oh, good. That's another one. What else do you have going down there?
We also have a golf tournament coming up, and that's going to be June 20th. That's going to be a blast. We usually get about 120 golfers that attend. We have a couple of great prizes. This year someone's going to have the opportunity to take a putt, and they could win $10,000 if they sink the putt. We also have a new thing that we're calling the ball drop, where someone will definitely win $1,000. What we do is we sell about 200 golf balls. Each golf ball goes in a cherry picker. We drop the cherry picker on a hole, and whatever ball goes in the hole or whatever's closest to the hole will win $1,000. And then we have some complimentary prizes as well, where people could walk away with a $500 gift basket and so on. Second closest to the hole,
wow.
Third closest to the hole win a $250 gift basket and so on.
So that doesn't require skill; it requires wind and
really, that's
from the cherry
really
picker,
pure luck. But we also have, if you sink a hole in one on one of the holes, which is probably about one of the shorter holes, you could win a brand new car from Mitsubishi.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. And where is it being held?
This is going to be at Beverly Golf and Tennis Club.
Beverly Golf and Tennis.
Yep.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. So that's 2 you've got happening pretty quickly.
2 big events right next to each other, lots of prizes.
So talk a little bit about the leadership program, is how that's been structured.
Sure. The leadership program is something that we started last year, and we try to bring together a local business owner who has a lot of leadership skills that can present in front of about 50 of our chamber members at a nice restaurant, and they pretty much kind of keep us updated on why they're successful, give us some advice on how they could be successful in their business as well. Okay. And it's been a great big hit. We've done about 6 or 7 of them so far. They've all sold out, and it brings together really kind of like the key players in the Greater Beverly business community.
Good. And those are about every couple months?
Yeah, every other month we end up
you do
pulling people together for that.
And then you and I have talked about one for the fall.
Yes.
Which we haven't named it yet, but we're...
Yeah. Yeah, in the past we've had things similar called education presentations or seminars and so on. And what we do is we bring together a lot of different business people together, and we have one person who presents that has to be more like educational, that's going to help their business. So we've done exit strategies, which was a huge hit, and there's other things that we've done from planning and budgeting and so on that's going to help our local business members be a little bit more prepared for the business world and to learn a little bit more about what's going on and
So maybe we ought to have a topic of entrance strategies.
Exactly.
To help them get through that, get started. So
yes.
Okay, so those are some good things that we're looking for, and we're looking to do that this fall as we start to pull that together. Anything else that I've missed?
No, those are the big ones. You know, we also have about, right now we're one of the largest chambers in Massachusetts. We have about 475 members right now. And our events range from 20 to 30 people at a coffee connection during the week to 75 people for an after hours. So we also have luncheons, and we do a networking event almost every single week. And it's just a nice way to get people connected, to learn more about other businesses and the business community, and also to build connections.
Right, right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've been to a number of those that work pretty well. I know that you have as well, Susan.
Right, yeah.
So we're going to take a little different tact this session. We're going to talk about another program, which John hasn't talked about, we call Coffee with the Coach. And that was a program we started back in June of last year. And the premise behind it was a way for people who were in small businesses to come together once a month, and they would get a chance to share concerns that they had about their business and also learn something.
Yes.
And we would have a topic that we would present. So I've been chairing that for the last, since June, and we've opened it up in January to people who are not members of the Chamber, who could be prospective members of the Chamber. Mm-hmm. And we've invited them, and we charge them a $10 fee to attend on that. But so that's Coffee with the Coach. We have a session every the second Monday of the month. It's at 9 o'clock at 10 o'clock at the Greater Beverly Chamber of Commerce offices, and we run about an hour, maybe an hour and 10, something like that. But we do that, so it works out pretty well, I think, for the group to attend. And we get probably somewhere between 4 to 8 people that show up in the course of time and the various topics that we've done. I'd like to share a little bit about some of the topics that we have here. We've talked about things like strategic planning, strategic development for your business. We've talked about goal setting. We've also talked about developing new habits, which is something that we all start to do in January, and we don't succeed on it all the time, but we talk about new habits, talk about team leadership for some of the businesses with more than one person, effective communications, and change impact. And the last time we got together, we talked about time management and time management strategies. And the idea there is that you only have 1,440 minutes in a day. You've got to figure out how you're going to use them. So we'll talk about that today, and we'll actually show some slides that we used in that session. And if anybody's interested in them after the fact, they can either get a hold of myself or John through the Chamber, and we can make that available to them. So some of the future topics that we want to do with Coffee with a Coach are really benefits of working with a business coach or a mentor, some tools to assess your business, how it's going, and then motivation as well as entrepreneurial leadership. So those are some of the topics we'll pick up in the next couple days. So we invited Susan to come to here today because she was one of the people that attended the sessions, and I wanted to have her kind of give you some feedback as well as me promoting it, but someone saying who's actually there as to how it went as we talk through this. So Susan, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your business?
Sure, thank you. So I'm Susan MacFarlane. I'm the founder of Susan MacFarlane Wellness Studio. The main thing that I do is called Bowen Work, and it's Bowen. Sounds like I'm saying bone sometimes. So, it's working with your body and its innate ability to heal itself by tapping into the autonomic nervous system. It's putting your body in a deep, relaxed state, moving your body gently from fight or flight to one of rest, relax, and release, so it can release the restrictions that are causing pain and inhibiting movement, messing with your digestion, sleep cycles, all kinds of things. So,
is it a massaging kind of thing, or is it?
It's not massage. It is hands-on. It is practical. I can actually work through your clothing, and it's various moves over muscles, tendons, ligaments, nerve bundles. A lot of the points that I'm working on can correlate to those of acupuncture, just without the needles.
Okay.
So a lot of people do like it because their bodies go into a deeper, relaxed state than they've received, say, with massage. And I come from a massage background.
Okay. And you've been doing this for a while.
Yeah, I've been doing it for a few years. I came, like I say, from a massage background, and when I learned Bowen Work, it was so that I could add it to my little repertoire, but all my massage clients who said, oh, we'll try the new thing, but we'll never give up our massage. I said, neither am I, and we all did within less than a year. So they said that they went into a deeper relaxed state and the residual benefits lasted longer.
Now, you alluded to, you've been doing it for a number of years, but I think you had a magic year just a little bit ago.
a magic year.
I thought it was 10 years. That makes sense, 10 years in
Well,
practice?
I had been doing massage for 10 years
Okay.
when I discovered Bowen. And
Okay.
yeah, so.
So you've been doing this for a while.
So
very
yeah, so I've been
experienced in
doing it for a while, and I also do air candling, which is something most people don't know about. So I've got a couple of different services that most people don't have.
And you're located over on Rantoul Street, right?
Actually, Cabot Street.
Cabot Street, rather.
Yep,
Sorry.
186 Cabot Street.
Okay.
Yeah, right near like Clay Dreaming, below them.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, very good. Very good. Well,
Thank
thank
you
you
for
for being
having
here today. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about time strategies, and those are very important things to try to develop some experience in. And we're going to go through a couple slides, and you can hear us in the background as you see the slides on the screen. And we'll talk about some of the techniques that may be helpful to you and how you might be able to apply in your business and in your life. So why don't we start with the first slide, if we can put up there. So we're going to talk about, as I said, time strategies on the Voice of Business here today. And I think if you look at it, do you do the math? If you take 60 minutes and you multiply it by 24, you get 1,440 minutes per day. And so the real question is, how's the best way to use that? And we're going to talk about that going forward here. So let's go to the next slide, which is slide 2, and we'll talk about the number of... There we are. We've got a pie chart. You always got to have a pie chart to illustrate things. But if you look at it to simplify it, really, about 73% of your day is spent either in sleeping or work. So most people, most adults our age, are expected to get somewhere between 7 to 8 hours of sleep a day. Right? That's
Yes.
or a night, depending
nice.
what time you work, but in the night, let's get that. And if you figure you work 8 hours a day, and I don't know many people that only work 8 hours a day in today's world, but with that and some travel involved, it works out to about 73% of your day is already booked. You've got about another 15% that works into really meals and family, and it's important to spend time with the family. And then you've got about 13% of your day, which is sort of unscheduled for you to do what you need to do. So if you look at that, you've got some parts that are very scheduled, and some parts that very minor parts that you can really work with and try to make some changes on. So if we go to slide 3, please. One of the things that I think we all suffer from sometimes is we don't get enough sleep. And we've got challenges that are going on. We've got a work schedule, or maybe we've got some event we're involved in. We're out late at night doing something, and we're getting back in, get next morning and go work with it. When I was working many years ago, my wife had a firm rule that I had to have breakfast with the children, whatever time I came home that night. So if I was working on a project and I got home at 1 or 2 in the morning, I had to be up at 6 to have breakfast with the kids.
Wow.
And I could do that for a couple mornings, but if you do that too often, and the first line on there says if you have less than 4 hours of sleep over a period of about 4 days, it's equal to legal drunkenness. Now, I don't know that I was quite that point, but you really start to lose your ability to focus when you don't get a proper amount of sleep. I think the other thing in today's world, we're really rushing around trying to get the next thing done that we have to get done. And when we've got some analysis on there that says that really if you spend some time to think about what you're doing, you could be 5 times more effective than when you don't. So you obviously have a process that you go through with your patients, that you go through, you know what you're going to do with them, so you can be very efficient with working through them. And the other is the challenge that we all have right now is multitasking. Everybody's got a smartphone, or most everybody has a smartphone. And so you're getting your email on it, you're getting texts on it, you're maybe getting a weather update, you may be getting some update from some newscast, news agency that you work with. And so you're always looking at different things, and it takes away from what your primary task is. So multitasking is a big deal that you need to control. And I think that there's some analysis that says that you lose 10 points of your IQ when you're trying to do multitasking with email and texting and all that kind of stuff. So you're not as effective in that regard. So really in today's world, we're connected all the time. We don't have any downtime. So we've got to figure out how to make that work within our program. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Some basic organization, and I shared this with the group on Monday a couple weeks ago, was when you look at how you organize your workload, if you're in an office environment, one of the techniques that we try to use is a 4-file approach. And the 4-file approach is really, it's what I have to do immediately, what I have to do this week, what I have to do next week, and when I have time. So I've got 4 files or 4 pockets set up that I can put stuff into to go through it. Now, sometimes stuff that's in next week goes to when I have time, and sometimes stuff that's this week may not get to next week. So I'd be honest with you, it doesn't always happen that way, but there's change happening. I don't know, Susan, what's your experience with that as you've seen that in your work?
Oh, very true. Yeah, that sometimes some things you just don't end up getting to because then other things hop in, you know. Someone had once said to me that, you know, when you're dealing with different businesses, it's like having different children so that one needs your attention more than the other. So you may have really great intention to keep things in order, but then something happens and one needs it. So
right.
Yeah, so some things just never make
so
it
it's
to the top of the pile.
prioritization that you have to go through as you go through it. The other is, and the bottom of the left-hand side of the slide was what we called organization, 3 Ds of it. One is do it, delegate it, or dump it. Sounds a little bit rough, but the do it is really get the thing done, which you have to get done. Or delegate it to somebody else if you can. And then if you can't get it done or you don't think you have any ability to support it, then get rid of it. Don't clutter your mind with it. There was an admiral who was a Navy SEAL, and he had a thought, and he said, the first thing that you need to do in the morning is make your bed. Because if you get up and you make your bed, and all 4 corners square, and I don't know if anybody does that or not, but make your bed all 4 corners square, then you've accomplished a task, and you can feel good about going on to the rest of the day. That was his philosophy. Now he had some incentive because when he was just starting out in the SEALs, he had a drill instructor or somebody that leaned over him and suggested very strongly that he make his bed in the morning before he got up. So that probably helped a bit. The other is down on the right-hand side. We talk about vertical versus horizontal filing. And that's a technique that it's right in front of you. So if you took the 4-file approach and stuffed them in front of you, then you would see what you had to work on today. The only question there is, you have enough workspace to make that happen on your desk, and that bit may or may not work for you, but that's part of it. So those are some thoughts there. I think if we go to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about priority, and really time management's all about priorities. And as Susan said, you maybe think of your customers as children, some needing more attention than others. You have to balance that. So one of the things we talk about is really having a daily to-do list of what's important for you to accomplish, and a weekly planning, so you know where you're going to be for the rest of the week. When we start scheduling this thing, one of the challenges of the Voice of Business is scheduling people to be here when the studio has time. So fortunately, we picked a time when we could get all together, but it meant looking out and what your schedule was. You were busy, John, the first couple days of the week. Yep. And on some vacation, and then catching up, right? So we kind of put it together and said we can do it Friday, and Friday worked out for us. So it's that looking ahead and being able to manage your schedule, being able to do the right things at the right time. And the other is focusing on effectiveness and what's the best time for you to be effective. My wife is up at 4 in the morning doing exercises and getting her day started, and every synapse is firing by the time she gets me up at 6. I don't do well at 6. But I do much better after dinner into the evening. If I'm trying to catch up on things, I do tasks at that point where she's exhausted and she goes to bed. So it's how your different psyche is in terms of how you want to really motivate yourself to do things. I don't know, what's your guys' experience on that?
For me, we have a really thick schedule at the Chamber of Commerce, and then you pack in your family life and your personal life. You have a pretty busy schedule, and I can't fit all that on one of those smartphones. I actually have a planner that I bring with me everywhere I go, and I open it up and I have everything in there, and I highlight things that I think are important, and I highlight things that in a different color that may not be as important, but we still need to get it done. And it's kind of funny because when I get together with my staff, we all have planners, and we all sit down at least once a week to go over sync our planners together to make sure that we're all on the same page and we're all going to be at the same events at the same time and so on. So I think everybody plans things differently. For me, I tried the phone system with the iPhone, and I just can't do it right now. I think I have too much stuff in the phone. Then it'll be blinking and chirping all the time, telling me this and that, and I
Right.
kind of need it right out there in front of me. So,
Yeah, I'm the same way. I still have a day planner,
Yeah.
and people make fun of me. And I
Yeah.
said, well, you know, I got it in my phone too.
Yeah.
But with me also, if a client calls and wants to book an appointment, I can't say, you know, hang on, let me put you on speaker so I can check my calendar.
Yeah.
It's just much easier to pull out the day planner.
exactly, and that's what I do. I get a lot of phone calls saying, oh, I want to plan an event and so on. I wouldn't be able to do that on my phone and talking to them at the same time, so
Yeah.
for some reason it's just been working out a little better
The
that way.
whole thing is our generation tends to do more the paper side with the planning, and my sons use much the other approach where they're constantly, everything's on their phone. But it's a matter of what you're comfortable with. I think is
Right.
really what it gets down to. But the fact is, you have to do some planning, you have to do some scheduling, and you have to know what you have available for time to work with.
Right.
One of the other things we talk about, I'll look through here, is really clutter. And that's a challenge for me anyway, is trying to keep track of all the paper, because paper flies around all over the place and you stack it there and stack it there. And so I try to look at it and say, I've got to clean my desk off periodically in order to get something done, because then I can focus on what I'm doing. It's experience with that, John. I know you have a lot of things going on at the chamber.
Yeah, my philosophy is when we leave work, I know we have stuff that piles up on our desk, but when we leave, everything should be put away nice and neat and stuff like that, not leaving things out.
Okay.
So we do that. Same thing with the rest of the office. We kind of go around and make sure everything is put away when we're done with our meetings and so on. Yeah.
Okay. All right, why don't we go to the next slide? I mentioned the telephone and the smartphone, and I think one of the challenges that we have is really with the telephone and the fact that we can be contacted anywhere, right? If you have a smartphone now, and not to get down this path too far, but I mean, you walk into the restroom, your phone's going to go off. What do you do about it? You don't. Hopefully, you don't answer it. I know people do, but you don't answer it. So you're constantly being contacted and interrupted on things like that. So I think there's some things you have to do in terms of saying that I'm going to turn my phone off for some period of time in order to get this particular work done. And that helps me focus on what I have to do and not have to listen to the phone. The same thing applies to email. Years ago, I had a setup on my email system that would blink every time or would chime every time there was a new message that came through. And that drove me nuts, because you always wanted to go look at what was there, and it just wasn't going to happen. So I finally disabled that and went from there. Instant messaging is the same thing. I mean, that's a great interrupter if you have to deal with that. And then texting. That's something that certainly interrupts what you're doing, and you have to decide whether you're going to answer that text right at that minute, or you're going to ignore it, or how you're going to deal with it. So balancing that as you're going on is really important. Now, again, given that we have sometimes where we can't do anything at our desk, but we may be able to use our smartphone to take advantage of maybe some waiting time if we're in a dealership or something like that. Now, we can't text and drive, we know that, and we can't Skype and drive, we also know that. So you've got to pick a time where you can focus on that as you go through with it. So those are things to do it. And if we go to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about some things with meetings. As many times, I know that when you have your clients come in, that you do some prep before they come in to understand, make sure you're up to speed of what has to be done with them. And I think that goes to, to take any meeting that you go to, is it, what are you going to try to get out of it, and knowing that what you're going to try to get out of it, try to accomplish that in the meeting by having some type of agenda or organization for it. So I think those are things that help do it, and also assign people. And when you finish your meetings at the chamber, I know that you write down, said, okay, John's going to do this, or Robin's going to do this, or someone's going to do this, right? And that's real important for you to know, to follow up with them down the road to make sure you get what needs to get done. I think the other thing that's important too is to separate home and work, because you need that break. You need that break between the two places. So if you can separate what you're doing if you're working at home, sometimes you have to shut down and then go do something else. I think it was driven home to me one time by my youngest son when we were having dinner. He and I were having dinner out, and I was on the phone, and he took the phone after I was done with the call and turned it off. I said, okay, I got the message, right?
Yeah,
so we all
message received.
sometimes don't think about that as to balancing between home and between work, and we need to do that. And then I think the other thing is really looking at how you can either delegate something or ask for help. Because if you can't get it done in that period of time, ask for some help. Somebody can come along and work with you on it. And then finally, on this slide, we talk about really learning to say no, and that's a real challenge for me. And some of the things I do is learning when to say no, and you have to say it with a smile on your face. I can't do that right now for you. I can do it for you in a little bit later or some other time, and so you have to balance those things out as you go on with it. And that may require you to change some personal habits that you have, because you may want to help everybody, but you can't help everybody all the time. So you've got to balance that out. So those are some thoughts that we had about time strategies. We've got a few more minutes left before we wrap up, but Susan and John, any thoughts you might want to add to what we talked about?
Well, when you were talking about learning to say no, when I first started my massage practice many years ago before I got into Bowen work, I was working weekends, nights, holidays, I just, whenever. And then as time went on, I realized that, I needed a little bit more structure to keep separate the home and the work. So I stopped working weekends, and I will see people at night, but only once or twice a week. So it's not like I'm available 24/7 like I felt like I was. So I had to set boundaries.
So you set a schedule as to when you're available, and you try to work within that, and you know how much you can do and how much you can't do.
Right.
Okay.
Because time with family is important too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of businesses out there that they take on too much. And what ends up happening is if they take on too much, they become overwhelmed. They don't finish the product that they're supposed to finish, and it hurts their business. And if they take on too much, clients start realizing that, and they may not, use their services as much because they start getting concerned that, they're overwhelmed, they have too much stuff going on. Even though they know they're very talented, they're probably worried about if they did use their services, they might not be able to get to them on time.
Right. Well, I saw that very clearly at some work that was done at my house where the person had their best intentions. They were trying to fit me in, and when they try to fit you in, it doesn't work.
Yep.
And so a kitchen project that probably should have taken about 3 or 4 weeks took 3 or 4 months before we finally finished.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that hurts their business, because then you're like, well, am I going to go back and use that person again?
Well, it hurts the business and hurts the relationship as well. So that's something that we have as we go on with it. So I think one of the things that's really important to think about when you're trying to establish a balance of what you want to do each day is really to figure out where you are. And one of the things that I suggested to the group the other day was that you do a schedule of what you do each day, and run that for 5 or 6 days. So basically list 7 or 8 things or 9 things across the top of what you're doing, and then figure out what time from the moment you wake up until the moment you go to bed each day, and then you have an idea of where you're spending your time. In my business with the consulting is I track my time. And so I know where I'm spending my time, whether it's in business development, whether it's networking, whether it's working with a client or a potential client or doing something like this. I track that, so I have an idea of where I'm spending my time. Now, when you know that, you can look at it and decide, well, how do I want to adjust? And I'll make some adjustments based on that. So that's one thing you can do. I think it's important also to look at maybe habits that you have that are conflicting with what you're trying to get accomplished, and so you may have to make some changes there. And then really start with organizing your day as early as you can to figure out where you are. I mean, I look at my email when I get up in the morning very, very briefly just to see if I have anything I really have to worry about, and then I don't spend a lot of time on it. So really, in summary, what we're saying is you've got 1,440 minutes a day. And you've got to figure out how to use them. Time management's a personal choice. You can manage your time. somebody else can manage it for you, but they're not going to manage it maybe the way you want it to be. So you need to figure out what you want. And then think about it from the perspective that you have as much time as Helen Keller, Pasteur, Michelangelo, Mother Teresa, Leonardo da Vinci, Thomas Jefferson, and Albert Einstein to accomplish whatever they accomplished in their particular day, what they worked with. So figure out how to best to use it. So that's our closing with it. So John and Susan, I really appreciate you sitting in with me today on The Voice of Business, and we'll have another session in the future. If anyone would like an electronic version of the material, we can reach out to either John or myself. If you're interested in a Coffee with a Coach session, it's the second Monday of every month from 9 to 10 at the Chamber offices. And finally, most importantly, I would like to remind you of keeping it local. And hashtag Keep It Local is a very important part from the Chamber's program to buy with local businesses.
Absolutely.
So with that, I'd like to thank you for attending our session today on Coffee with a Coach is not that, Voice of Business. And so until the next time, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.